Gilbert, Arizona is not what you think. My name is Cole Rep, a local real estate agent, and today is the Daily Arizona Update, September 10th, 2025. We have a whole lot to cover, from cost of living, the neighborhoods in Gilbert, walking scores and biking scores, the lack of new construction, and even the nightlife in Gilbert. So, without further ado, let's get started. Firstly, where is Gilbert, Arizona if you are thinking about moving here or are not familiar with the area? Gilbert is going to be this pocket in the highlighted zones that you can see here, and it follows a unique path. So for the most part, we would consider Gilbert these areas, and then this would be kind of South Gilbert. But for the most part, we're thinking in this zone. It does follow close by Chandler. There is Mesa in this area, Tempe here, and Scottsdale in this big section here. So Gilbert, Arizona, how does it compare financially to other places? Something that you might not realize is Gilbert is more expensive to live in than other places in the United States or even in the Valley. In fact, the median home price here is around $500,000, ranging all the way up to $1 million, especially if you're looking for something new or even larger. Now, that doesn't mean that every home is out of reach. There are some affordable options, of course, but compared to other East Valley cities like Queen Creek, Santan Valley, or even parts of Mesa, you'll likely pay a premium for the Gilbert address. This is if we start in Gilbert versus a city like Phoenix. So Gilbert is going to be slightly more expensive. If you currently make $75,000 a year in Phoenix, you are going to need to make $78,000 to have that same living lifestyle. The biggest is here with housing costs. It is 19% more expensive to get a home, from the average being $622 to $739 in Gilbert. And then apartment prices is even going to be an extra, $170 a month. Now here's some miscellaneous costs that are not as comparable, but it is interesting. Women's slacks, 46% more expensive, while dry cleaning is 25% less expensive. Even a hamburger is going to cost you about 72 cents more in Gilbert, and a newspaper is going to be 54% more. Craziness. If you're buying newspapers, you're paying a premium. But how does it compare now to a city like Los Angeles? So if you live in Los Angeles making $75,000, you only need to make $56,000 in Gilbert to have that same lifestyle. It is significantly less expensive. So it all depends on the city you're comparing it to, because if you compare these side by side from Los Angeles to New Mexico, they tell drastically different stories. New Mexico, the home prices are 69% less at only $438,000, while Gilbert is $739,000. But then if you look at LA, you're at $1.33 million. The most part, the changes are obvious. LA is more expensive across the board. Outside of, again, women's slacks and newspaper prices, Gilbert has a premium on those. Just don't buy them in Gilbert. And then in New Mexico, the only thing you're going to save on if you move to Gilbert is going to be a little bit on toothpaste, dry cleaning, washing repairs, and wine. Very random. But for the most part, the obvious that you might have expected, Los Angeles is more, and we are considerably more expensive than New Mexico when it comes to housing. Another thing to consider with the cost of living in Arizona, specifically Gilbert, is going to be utilities. Gilbert residents start to see approved sewer rate increases on their bills. Some have seen their overall water and sewer fees increase by $100 a month since moving to the town a decade ago. Of course, the important part here is town a decade ago. A $100 increase is from then, but for me personally, I've seen about $15 to $30 extra on my bill since this increase. It is normally around $120. Now I'm seeing around $150, $160, depending on the month. But these are still important things to consider when thinking about the cost of living. It says right here that an average residential bill increase around $20, which makes sense because that's exactly what I was feeling. And then another thing to know is electricity cost is a part of that utilities. There has been an approved change to SRP's residential prices. This is going to be, I believe, around a 2% increase, but every dollar counts. And another thing that you might not realize about Gilbert is the mix of neighborhoods. Here we have Bella Vista Lakes, Morrison Ranch, Agritopia, and then non-HOA. A lot of people imagine master plan communities like tree-lined streets, modern designs, and yes, we do have plenty of that, but we also have older communities, especially ones built around the 1980s all the way up to the late 1990s. They can look a little more dated compared to today's standards. Back then, builders liked some orange stucco, desert rock landscaping, and color palettes that, not aging with the times, especially as we get to a lot more modern colors. If those homes weren't regularly updated, you'll definitely notice it when you're driving through the neighborhoods. Some yards aren't maintained, the paint is starting to leave faded, and the curb appeal isn't always there. Now the good news is, like you can see here on the screen, there are some absolutely stunning neighborhoods. You got Morrison Ranch, you got Agrotopia, and Val Vista Lakes that are three of my favorite large housing neighborhoods. Of course, we have things like Circle Ranch or Circle G. Of course, we have things like Circle G, but these are going to be more custom homes in Circle G, and these are going to be more master plan communities. So my three favorite are the ones on the screen today. But if you're moving from out of state, expecting that every part of Gilbert is going to have that picture perfect type of neighborhood, you might be shocked to see that some communities are a little more rough around the edges. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. It is still Gilbert. Things are fantastic, but rougher around the edges compared to what we're seeing in these images here, which are pretty perfect looking neighborhoods. I mean, it really is hard to compete in the valley. So this was a listing that we just sold on 113 West Rawhide, which is going to be really close to downtown Gilbert. And I just want to show you kind of what the streets look like if we started going down. So this is what I'm talking about here. It's not that they're bad, they're just different. You know, we have older cars in the garage. We got some weeds that are growing off of the rocks. The color palettes, before this home was remodeled, it's a beautiful home, but it's very, you know, specific on the color palettes. We can see brown, 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 brown. It's just interesting. This one here, a little more worn down. You can see that there's a lot of weeds growing out. And then I'll show you one more neighborhood down the way. So we had two listings in this neighborhood, but the one down here on Cholla, going into the neighborhood, you have non-HOA here, and then you have HOA here. So there is some contrast, but for us on Cholla, we had a tougher time because some of the homes were a little more out of date, you could say. This one, it's got some struggling on the roof. There is not a lot of landscaping happening. There's parking in the rocks and in the grass. If we go down further into the street, you know, depending on when the street view was taken, we start to get some more greenery and some more well-kept lawns. But then we have ones like this, where we still have some overgrowth. Here, we have kind of a lot going on in the neighborhood. It is the holidays, it seems, so that's fine. That's all just decorations. But we got this one that is pretty overgrown. And then we have this neighboring one, which this map was updated in 2017, but had it gone through to 2025, this home is basically barren. And this home inside, you can tell is getting worn down. The roof is starting to wear. It looks like it's been vacant for a very long time. This one as well, it's starting to get a lot more cars. There's two parked here, then there's three more here. It's just different, right? Nothing bad. It is just, if you're expecting every single home to look like this, where it is perfectly tree lined, every home is well manicured, that's just not the case. And for some of you, that might be a pro, some of you might be a con, but that's the great thing about Gilbert is there's options for everybody. And while I'm kind of touching on neighborhoods and HOAs, let's touch on some of the things that might be a little surprising. In Gilbert, a majority of the communities are going to be in a homeowners association. That means that you usually have to have a nicely kept front yard, but it comes with nice common areas, community pools and parks, and some homes that have a little bit higher standard of curb appeal, like I mentioned earlier. For some people, that's a big plus. You don't have to worry about your neighborhood painting their house a weird color like neon green or very bright yellow. You don't have to worry about the weeds growing in the yard. It can always look pretty well put together. But what if you have an RV, or you buy a boat, or you have a bigger truck that can't necessarily park in your garage and you need to park it somewhere on the side? These all could be issues. Every HOA is a little bit different. Some are more relaxed, and some will not even let you park on the street overnight. I've lived in 2 or 3 communities where if my car was parked on the side, or someone that I had over, a friend, whoever, then I would get in trouble and I would get a fine from the HOA, which is crazy to think that I couldn't park overnight in front of my own home. Another thing that's gonna be important is if you're looking for a home that is larger or even has a 3 or 4 car garage, you are likely not gonna find it with non-HOA. So this is a list that I pulled up, which is essentially just all of Gilbert as the city code, and then I put anything at all that is non-HOA. And you're gonna see here, for the most part, the pricing is what you'd expect. There's some lower, there's some more expensive. As far as Gilbert goes, 437 would be considered lower. But you're not going to be getting a lot of, parking. You're not going to be getting a lot of, uniqueness when it comes to style. We can see a lot of these same floor plans. It's going to be a 1-story, maybe a 2-story, a lot of these rectangle log style homes. This one's more expensive, so it's a little bit more unique. Let's see this one, that's $499 on San Angelo. It looks beautifully remodeled, but again, similar floor plan that you might have recognized here, and you can kind of recognize here, and you can kind of recognize here, and dare I say that you could kind of recognize it here. So if you want something larger with more parking, you're gonna have to get into something like this, and now you're at 1.1 million. You want a 4-car garage? Now you're at 1.15. That is kind of where the trouble lies. So if you're an average couple, an average family, you're solo, whatever that looks like, if you're not expecting something massive, there is opportunity. Just know that if you want to park a big RV, you need a big gate, you want acreage, that's just going to come at a premium in Gilbert, Arizona. Another factor that you might want to consider when moving to Gilbert is going to be the walkability and the score that we have here. So Gilbert is not really built to just go walk and get a coffee, walk and go get groceries, and walk to go head to a local shop, maybe like a gym class. Most of our neighborhoods are master plan communities, like I said, with HOAs, and instead of sprinkling little shops or restaurants throughout those communities, there's typically a cluster of businesses at intersections. And of course, that comes with Walgreens. Every single corner in Gilbert, it seems like it has a Walgreens. So let's see on here that I had this score pulled up. This is downtown Gilbert. So it says it's very walkable with some transit and very bikeable. But this is the only place in Gilbert that's going to have this score. If we look at just Google Maps of Gilbert, right, this is this whole area, there's not a lot of shopping happening in this area. If you live here, you have a church, you have maybe some shopping here, a Lifetime, but let's say you're over here. There's nothing. There's nothing in these sections until you can get to some of the corners where they have bulk items here, another set of bulk items here. This is just kind of how it operates in Gilbert. You can see it's almost all housing here. But then we have some shops, and then we have some more shops, and then we have some more shops. But they're always together in corners. The only exceptions that we really have is downtown Gilbert, and then in this Agritopia neighborhood, you have, this is a lot more walkable into these areas here, but there isn't still a grocery store or any of these things that you really would need to go to unless you're driving. For the most part, if you're in Arizona, you're gonna be driving around 10 to 15 minutes regardless of what the distance is. And then if we pull up here, I want to show you something around biking. So though we don't have walking, we do have a lot of biking paths. So this is downtown Gilbert right here, and you can see that this is, it's hard to tell on a map. I wonder if I can get my little guy down there, because it is pretty cool. If you follow the canals or the power lines, you can see a lot more of what's possible. Man, it doesn't seem to really do a good job showing me it here. So let's just go back. This is actually a sky bridge that connects this area here, which I actually might be able to put my guy here. Ooh, yeah. So this is a bridge that takes you to downtown Gilbert, and it connects a lot of the canals and the power line paths, and this can follow through all the way down. So no matter where you live, there's going to be little biking paths, little crossings here. You can end up getting back onto here, going down the power line, following the trail, right next to some parks. You're in Freestone Park right now. And as we go down, there's another set of the power lines going all the way back into the canal, which again, there's more crossings. So there is a lot of biking paths here. You can see the canal runs all the way around. It's just going to be different and maybe not what you expected when you think about another city like Boston or New York. Now, one of the bigger challenges that we have here in Arizona is going to be the lack of new construction. There isn't a lot of land left that you could tell here. There is some farmlands, but this is still not being developed. For the most part, it would be hard to find a blank spot of land to go build on. There's some here, but this isn't really enough for a big development of housing. It's likely just going to end up being more office buildings. So new construction, the amount that's left typically is more expensive, because the only way that it can be profitable for them is if they're charging you a higher premium. So you can see here, this is around 2.6 million, 700,000, 942. This one's 707, and it's just going to be harder to find something that is generally affordable. This is New Home Source Professional that shows you all of the new builds inside of Gilbert. We're seeing the same thing I was pointing out there. 1.4, 600,000. This one's 500,000, but there is going to be limited options for you. You can see another 1.5, 700, 700, 640, 726. So for the most part, there are options. It's just not going to be a ton that is in that affordable price point. Unless you go outside of Gilbert, this is a list of new build homes that are under around 450,000. So you can see there's some in Santan Village, or Santan Valley rather, a classic, nothing crazy, one story, more starter home. There's more in Apache Junction. This one's $399 for a 2-story, pretty nice. Another one here, $445. There might not be interior photos just because these are new construction, but if you're willing to go to Santan Valley or Queen Creek, we can look here on the map and see if you're willing to go a little more north or southeast, there are options, but again, none in Gilbert. So that is one of the issues we run into. And the very last thing that I want to go over is nightlife. Gilbert is more family focused. It doesn't have a lot going on if you are a night owl or someone that just enjoys going out with friends. There is Santan Village Mall here that does have a couple nice options, but for the most part, it's closing around 9, 10 p.m. The only option you have if you want to be in Gilbert is downtown Gilbert. This is one of the main streets. It's a little bit older of a photo. Pomo Pizza is no longer here, and there are a couple new shops and parking garages along this way here. But this is going to be your only option. There is a really cool speakeasy, the White Rabbit. There is Dirk's Bentley Whiskey Row, which is really nice. There's also an arcade bar, level 1. So there are options. It's just not going to be the same as something like downtown Chandler, something like downtown Phoenix. This is Rough Rider, very cool bar, North Scottsdale, or even Tempe, which has a speakeasy here. But of course, there's Mill Avenue, which is famous and very chaotic because of ASU, but Gilbert is not quite on their level. So if you're someone that's really big into nightlife, this might not be the place for you. But that being said, if you did want to go to those places, you're only about a 20 to 25 minute drive away. That is one of the best things about Gilbert. While it isn't known for its late night city, you are not far from the action if that's what you want. It's a nice balance. You can enjoy the quieter, family-focused vibe at home while you still have access to all the things you'd like in Arizona. So there you have it. This is what it's like living in Gilbert. And I'm not sure, is it what you expected? At the end of the day, it's not about whether Gilbert is perfect, it's whether about it's a right fit for you. If you're looking to buy or sell in Gilbert or in Arizona in general, my partner and I would love to be the real estate resource for you. A little self-promotion, we've done over 600 deals in the last 5 years. We have a long list of on-market, off-market, fix and flip properties, things that we've done ourselves, and a list of experience that we have for you. So if you're looking to buy or sell, we'd love to help. There is going to be a link in the description.com. It is www.livingphxmetro.com/YouTube. We hope to see you soon, and I'll see you tomorrow in the next video. Peace, y'all.